Okay, everything's supposed to be working now. Hopefully. Hey pips. Today we got a special day. We're going to play Mahoyo finally. And get some lore on the Nasuverse. Okay. F4 at how do I it's still in windowed mode, no? How do I do you want to go to choices the next thing? No. What the fuck just happened? Okay, let me just let me just switch it back. Why is it in a windowed mode? I want it to play in full screen now. How to open Mahoyo in full screen when you start it from Steam. So it tells me to change setting from the config in the menu. Alt enter. Let's see if that works. Okay. While I'll do that, let me just test something. Okay, Alt enter. Oh, that worked. That worked. That worked. There we go. Okay. Let it stay right there before I check something. Do that. Yeah, okay, it works. It works. Okay. Let's get right to it. Let me just put out my notes. I'm going to use those the Word file here to document any interesting fact about the Nasuverse. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal right now here is to basically dive into Mahoyo, Guardian of Killers, or whatever the name is of the anime, and then Tsukihime, and then Fate. And basically, we are trying to learn everything about Nasuverse in terms of lore, in terms of what the hell is going on in that series, how does the world work, and etc. and etc. And yeah, basically that's what I came up with in a video that I made a couple of months ago, where I pretty much said that I'm going to study the entire lore of the Nasuverse, starting with Mahoyo, which is this one. Oops. Let me just change name. Okay. I don't know how the hell it's going to work with the visual and everything. I guess I have to read bunch, but it is what it is. Okay. Okay. Let's get right to it. It was a winter day 8 years ago. That solemn morning when she understood the value of life for the first time. Her home was nested on the side of the mountain. Around it was nothing but inhospitable wilderness. She had no neighbors or childhood friends to speak of. Things like traveling to school or playing outside were more trouble than they ought to be. Indeed, with its pure water and bright stars, it was a place rich with memories both frustrating and healthy. I have no idea how to spell that last word. That was only during the summer though. Winters in those mountains were extremely frigid, each morning more severe than the last. Her father would drive her to the train station after waiting for 10 minutes for the engine to warm up and the iced over window to clear. Mind starting up the car for me? Her father would savor his morning coffee, leaving her to venture outside and rev the engine. Out the front door she would go, traversing the garden with icy breath until she reached that old sedan. As always, she inserted the key and then started the ignition. The engine rumbled to life. Just as she proudly finished that humble task she had done so many times before. What the hell was that? A shrill scream pierced the air. She knew, even though it wasn't human, that feeble sound was a cry of agony. A few moments passed. Her father came out and opened the hood of the car. Creaking fan belts. Monstrous looking engine. And something that didn't belong. Did the engine crush the cats and its kittens? What the fuck? There was a cat, a mother by the looks of it, and her 2 kittens. The 3 cats had been huddled for the romp in the engine's compartment. The mother cat was missing. Bro, what the fuck? I just started reading this. What the hell? One of the kittens had been mangled beyond recognition by engine belts and surely died instantly. Bro, I just started reading, not even second in. Okay, Nasu, you freak, okay. The other kitten is a face half covered in blood, panted faintly. It desperately clung to its mother, or rather the chunk of the meat that has been its mother, with the last bit of life it could muster. Poor things. Her father lamented their plight. The previous night has been especially cold. After he returned home yesterday, the cats must have sunk under the hood, drowned by the rump of the engine. They had slept next to the engine and awoken to the storm of spinning belts. Cars in 80s were not sealed particularly well, so this was not unheard of. It's okay, it wasn't your fault. Her father's voice seemed distant. She could only make out a small tuft of the kitten's great fur. The rest of it was caked in the blood of its mother and brother. I can see its skull, the fragile life of the speckled kitten. The trembling, impossible blind, it continued to nuzzle against its dead mother's chest. Did she run away? She took the kitten in her arms and ran deep into the mountains to her grandfather's house. Was it because she was overcome with regret? Or was it the shock of the grief? Years later, she still wasn't sure. Fighting back the welling tears, she burst into her grandfather's workshop. Her grandfather was a magician who could do anything. She had never seen magic. She knew that magic was the fantasy straight out of fairy tale, but so was her grandfather. He had to find him. He was the only one who could help. I suppose you want me to alter this kitten's fate. The cave-dwelling magician said indifferently. This kitten needs our help, she pleaded. Whether it was a simple task or Herculean labor, her grandfather would not say. He simply granted the girl's childish wish like a machine. Oh no, the girl said. Before she knew it, however, she was holding the tiny corpse in her hands. Its fur was cold. The warmth of the life had left its body, and the tears she had fought so hard to hold back poured from her eyes. The regret spread throughout her chest like an endless grey sky. We were too late. Some things cannot be undone. Her mind struggled to come to grips with what had just occurred. The last 10 minutes were total blank. Who she met, what she had known, it was all as if it never happened. The only thing she was sure of was that the life, once extinguished, can never return. Is somebody there? That day, it was her mistake that gave birth to me. That day, it was her mistake that gave birth to me. Okay, interesting. Indeed. Whatever occurred that day, it was a day of nostalgia and longing. This is the fairy tale of 8 years ago. The day they first met, that no magic can ever bring back. Arrogant, greedy, and able only to destroy, I must be a wolf. I don't have regrets, there is no looking back. If my pride has left you behind, my sincere condolences. But at any rate, I suppose it's my fate to die at the hands of the little Red Riding Hood. What the fuck is happening? Strange one. The art style is insane though. Let me just raise the sound for it. Oh, it is okay. It's full volume. From her bed, she could see sky was ashen, watercolor gray. The thermometer displayed 43 degrees Fahrenheit, a rare and unforgiving temperature for November. Her stomach woke her up with a growl, pathetically reminding her that she had completely missed her breakfast. But lazy mornings like today's were for her a blessing. It was already well past 8 in the morning. On any ordinary weekday, tardiness would be unavoidable, but today classes were cancelled in commemoration of the school's anniversary. Gratefully, she had every intention of taking it easy for the first time in ages. Outside the window was a gloomy grey, and it reminded her more of the evening than morning. It wasn't a pleasant morning by any stretch of the imagination, but having been up all night until just 3 hours ago, she couldn't care less about the weather outside. All she cared about was more sleep. As long as she could spend her morning in bed, what was happening outside was of no concern to her. She shut the curtains. She closed her eyes and tried to let the sleep reclaim her. I would like a nice, uneventful dream for 2 hours, thank you. Blissful slumber found her soon enough, and her consciousness faded. However, her simple request would be mercilessly refused. A faint but shrill sound lingered in her ears. It was the unmistakable ring of the telephone. Much to her chagrin, her eyes popped open out of habit. The telephone was situated in the foyer of the first floor. Answering it meant walking down 32-foot corridor and going down at a flight of stairs. In her sleep-deprived state, that distance seemed somewhere between incredibly far and astronomically far. That's relatable. The phone's increased ringing continued. She knew that the caller would eventually give up if she ignored it, but she chose to fight the urge. Oh, she went down after all. Why wouldn't Alice answer it? She thought her housemate would get it, but she soon had to abandon all hope. The realization struck that her housemate did not have a day off from school and was likely in a class at her prestigious little hilltop academy. Is this Aoko? The, the color proved incredibly persistent. That persistence made the volume of the ringing seem even louder.
もうせっかくの安眠を。
She was left with no choice but to get up and throw a top on and leave the room.
うわ、寒。
Who is this exactly? I'm not too sure. She rubbed her hands together to warm her thumb fingers. The mansion's heating system was inadequate, to say the least, which meant that the winter was the very worst of uninvited guests. Never more so than on a early morning as this, when one didn't need to use the thermometer to know how cold it was. The mansion sat in the mountains and was surrounded by dense forest. Winter always arrived here first, before moving on to the nearby towns. The robotic ringing of the telephone reverberated throughout the long hallway. The mansion's furnishing had been so perfectly maintained that it made the place feel unlived. It seemed lonelier than it did splendid. Coupled with the dreary morning, it could have passed for a haunted house.
ま、幽霊屋敷そのものだけど、だいたい2人で住むには広すぎるのよ、この家は。
I know Alice is one of the protagonists. She's like a witch or something. Is this Aoko that's speaking right now? I'm not too sure. Who is it right now? She counted more than 30 rings since it first began. The caller either had a lot of free time on their hands or had a good understanding of the host's circumstances. She had a strong hunch that it was the latter. The window above looked out onto the gloomy sky. She hastened to catch the unrelenting ringing in the act as soon as possible. Though she had a feeling that her happy morning may have come close the moment she caught it. It was here that a series of incidents began. Apologies for the lack of romance to this tale. Okay, I guess there is no romance. Whether it be objectively true or merely superstition, it was always from the gloomy and unassuming beginnings that extraordinary events are set into the motion. Oh, it is Aoko. The Koichi Kinokanasu, the two goats. Scenario Kinokanasu. The art is crazy though. Look at that. Original art, character design, graphical director, Kayama Hirokazu. Look at that, it's so pretty. So Alice and Aoko are already living together? Okay, I didn't know that was the case. Script director, Tsukuri Monoji. Music, Hideyuki Fukasawa and Keita Haga. Lead background artist Euro. So that's the guy that drew this? The art looks insane, man. Super hyper realistic. Graphics Takao Otsuki Shimokoshi. Lead programmer Kyobi. So that's the town where everything takes place. Okay. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to jump right in. Which on the holy night. Okay. The rain had subsided somewhat by the time she reached the school gate. The sunlight seemed to be playing a peekaboo behind the clouds in the distance. It looked like it might be cleared by the early afternoon.
と言っても、私には関係のない話だけど。
The weather reflected her lack. On top of the being forced out of house at such early hour, she had to suffer through the winter rain. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. The sinking feeling she had only grew. She had only grew as she passed through the entrance and headed inside. She didn't encounter any other students along the way, nor she did see anyone taking part in club activities either. The reception desk to the faculty room seemed to read faculty closed. Facility? I have no idea how to pronounce that word. The school had given all of its students a day off, except those explicitly summoned, like her. The fact that irked her more and more as the minutes passed. She opened the door to the faculty room and headed towards the desk, and she had visited a number of times before. The man at the desk wore a plain shirt and a suit that were nonetheless neatly pressed. Slim-framed glasses adorning his face, giving off the amicable, I have no idea, yet cunning air. The mild-mannered image this mid-20s man presented clashed with the cigarette he smoked. He didn't appear to have noticed her yet.
Yamashiro-sensei.
She closed the door with a bang. Showing no response to the student's sound, Mr. Yamashiro lifted his head.
Yeah, Ohayo, Aozaki-kun. 要件は聞いているかな？
はい。1時間前に自宅で、事前に何の相談もなく。
Out of the blue. Do you get it? She's a magician of the blue. Her nickname is Blue. Okay, I'm taking it too far. Having graduated from the US high school himself, Mr. Yamashiro was not much older than the rest of the students. For that reason, the students preferred him over the other teachers. He always had something interesting to talk about and kept conversation casual. In fact, he seemed more like an older student than a teacher, but she unfortunately didn't share her fellow students' fondness for him. She was of the opinion that teachers should come across as more austere. Let me search up what that means. Okay, so she thinks that teachers supposed to be strict. Okay. Like Iron Fist that could inspire both love and hate in equal measure. Not a body to joke around and pal around. He was the exact opposite of how she felt a teacher should be. It was only natural that her manners towards him would be forced and unfriendly. Not that she had ever been weird to make friendly small talk. Oh my. Not that she has ever been wired to make a friendly small talk.
今日もご機嫌斜めみたいだね。
You
君は
are in full mood
それは
today.
先生の気のせいです。今日だけ特別と
The matter-of-fact answer perfectly matched the displeasure displayed on her face. Her bad mood from having to get up early and the tiredness from staying up late must have collectively made her look positively adversarial.
そうならいいんだけどね。彼にはそう辛く当たらないでくれよ。
先生、その件ですけど、私まだ詳しい話を聞かされていないのですが。
Mr. Yamashiro met her pressing eyes. He finally understood the reason behind their tone and slowly put out his cigarette.
電話じゃあなんて聞いたの？
転入生の紹介をするとだけです。
All the Yamashiro's eyebrows stood up, impressed with the brevity of her answer. She could say that she was angry, not because she had been called to the school on her day off, but because she hadn't been told why she was here. Mr. Yamashiro chuckled sympathetically.
先生、これが笑い話ならそろそろ帰っていいでしょうか。
いや、ごめん謝るよ。冗談じゃなくて真面目な話なんだ。
本当に転入生の問題で。
訳ありというか難しいというか。彼、宗十郎くんと言うんだけど。
Oh, that's the goat.
いろいろとずれていてね。僕らが案内してあげるより同世代の君の方が適任だと思ったんだ。
That's the goat. The man with the hands. She threw him an amused look. It was negligent of them to be pushing teaching duties on her, but she did wonder how exactly this transfer student was peculiar. Maybe he meant that student had behavior problems or was difficult somehow. But peculiar? She didn't have the slightest idea what that meant.
ずれてるなんてそう使わない表現だけど。
She had her doubts but swept them aside for now. This wasn't the time to get distracted by more concerns. The fact remained that this conversation was all the peculiar she could handle and she needed more information. She was already beginning to fantasize about saying no and curling up in her warm bed at home.
一つ質問があります。
何？あ、学年は君と同じ2年生だよ。性格は落ち着きがあって人の話をよく聞くタイプ。裏を返せば覇気がないとも取れるけど、青崎くんとはクラスは違うけどきっと仲良くな。
そういったことは本人から直接聞きますし、測ります。そうではなく、なぜ私なんでしょうか。
Though her tone was still stern, it was clear that she was willing to cooperate. She had decided to put her feelings of dissatisfaction aside and focus on the task at hand. Forcing herself to act empathetic in spite of her self-absorbed nature was something she was used to do. Paradoxically, this force of will was also the reason teachers put so much faith in her. To the point. At times that strength shattered expectations, and on those occasions they were left with no choice but to treat it like a natural disaster and wither it until it passed. That was how Mr. Yamashiro had come to deal with her over the past year.
もう一度だけ聞きます、山城先生。それで、なぜ私なんでしょうか。
Pressured by the question without a clear yes or no answer, he answered.
それはね。別に 青崎くんが先生方に敬遠されているのと同じぐらい信頼されていて、学校のためなら教師も生徒も一緒くたに切って捨てる鉄の生徒会。
それ以外にこんな呼びつけを。
Her eyes did nothing to hide that disbelief as she glared at him. The strength far beyond that of ordinary 17-year-old girl, coupled with the youthful beauty of one, Mr. Yamashiro let slip a genuine smile, admiring miraculous balance of qualities.
いや、責務だけでいいなら僕がやってるさ。この人選に関しちゃ教師や生徒会長といった役職も関係ないよ。なんていうか、こんな頼みを損得抜きで聞いてくれるのは君だけだと思ってね。
In other words, he knew she wouldn't say no.
山城先生。
うわ、怖っ。もう睨まない睨まない。言ったろ、僕にはともかく彼には笑顔でってと。まあ納得してくれたならすぐに移動しよう。もう随分待たせてしまっているからね。それと雨の中ご苦労様。帰りはもちろん車で送るよ。
Mr. Yamashiro stood up gracefully. I'm good, thanks, she replied before turning and walking out of the faculty room. He had been waiting for about an hour. While he did, the rain showered lightened into the drizzle. His mind wandered as he listened to the sound of the raindrops. The room was filled with neatly arranged rectangular tables. He was the only one here. Quite some time has passed since he has been brought to this room and asked to wait. Even the best behaved student might have grown dissatisfied or anxious with the situation by now, but the boy stuck to his post like a scarecrow. He was chilled to the bone. It was end of November, and the low temperature in the morning had marked the start of the winter. The room was not much warmer. The heater hadn't been turned on. Either he has missed the teacher telling him to turn it on, or he had never seen one in his life. He breathed lightly on his freezing fingers as he aimlessly surveyed his surroundings. This dearly place was apparently a meeting room. The other students might have considered it a wonderful place to meet, but to him it was a drab and not very spacious. It was a lifeless place that reminded him of arid cave. Stuck in this cold room with absolutely nothing to do, his mind turned to what they wanted to discuss. Unable to come up with a solid answer, he returned his attention to the sound of the rain. The rain had hardly resembled the rain in mountains, though he could still recognize it barely. Its smell, the sound were harsher, but at the end of the day, rain was still a rain. So even in this world, alien as it was, could have been something in common with the mountains. That trivial detail perked him up a little. He liked how the town looked soaked in rain. Naturally, he preferred sunny weather, but he liked rain in its own way. The fog from the rain had soaked up the scent of the soil, and it reminded him of home. It was at time like this that he was able to numb the anxiety the city gave him. But then he let out this discouraged sigh. How pathetic. He had already been here 2 weeks, and that of his hometown still made him sad. Perhaps feeling that he was being unfair to his new life, he composed himself and continued to wait patiently. As if having a passion for distractions, his attention returned to the sound of the rain once more. Waiting like this didn't seem to be particularly hard for him. He quietly endured the numbing cold and an hour alone with a calm, deep breath. As the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. And a strong point of his or not, he was astonishingly patient. It was certainly helping him out in this moment. So this is where they meet. She, on the other hand, was livid. The profile of the transfer student has been explained to her on her way to the meeting room. She was told he has lived his whole life up in mountains without any electricity. That meant more than half of civilized society would have been an utter mystery to him.
なんて絶望的な断絶。戦後どころか戦前の話じゃない。ロビンソンにも程がある。
She had every right to be angry. His village has apparently remained insulated in the mountains for many years. Contact with the villages in the foothills of the mountains only occurred once a month or so, which was unfathomable in modern Japan. Although expressways and Japan Rail, the old national railways, now span the country like arteries, it was entirely impossible for mountain villages like his to exist. But she couldn't imagine how someone born to such circumstances would think of or live.
電気がないって村に行き渡っていないだけで公衆電話ぐらいはあったんですよね。
なかったそうだよ。こっちに暮らすようになってまず驚いたのが電話だそうだし、電話って便利ですねなんて真顔で言われてね。そういえばそうだなぁと。
She shot a sidelong glare his way as he laughed. It seemed that the naivety of the country boy had cheered up Mr. Yamashiro a bit.
駐在もいないってことか。うちも実家は山奥ですから電気が通っていないのはありえないとは言いませんけど、そいつ学校も知らないんですか？
うん。どんなものかは知っていたそうだけど、実際来るのは今日が初め。ああいうのも野生児っていうのかな。狼に育てられた狼少年みたいな。怖いな青崎くん。冗談だって。大丈夫。話してみた感じおとなしい子だったから。なんていうか言葉の通じない小動物みたいな感じ。
山城先生、その例え気休めになってませんか？
Man, she is strict. She gave her blunt reply. She tried to simulate in her mind what a life without electricity would look like, but out of it took her sour mood from bad to worse. After all, it was the world she had never known. She could understand why the teachers had given up. She too wanted to give up and return to her warm bed, but her good-for-nothing pride was holding her hostage. Not only did the teachers believe she was up to the task, but she also believed she could do it. It wasn't that easy to go back on her word, no matter how many bad things looked after the fact. She walked along the hallway, the rain pattering in the background. The meeting room was already in sight. With a furrowed brow, she fixed her long hair in anticipation of the meeting the unknown stranger within. Her elegant strides were like those of a confident general going into the battle.
いや、青崎くん、君を信頼してる僕だけど、念のため確認しておくよ。
作り笑いは苦手です。一応努力しているつもりですが。
ああ、そうなんだ。それはよかった。いやー、ほんとよかった。青崎くんにも苦手なものってあったんだね。
Mr. Yamashita's shoulders slumped the second they reached the meeting room. As he put his hand to the door, his eyes seemed to say, "Be nice, please." This only made her more irritated.
分かってるわよ。愛想が悪いってのは。でも笑顔なんて意識して作るものじゃないんだし。だいたいそういうインスタントな人付き合いなら飛び丸の方が向いてるって。
She sighed about her social shortcomings, but then it occurred to her that being called into the school on a day off while sleep deprived wasn't anything to smile about anyway. She also thought that the person responsible for this mess would be better off attending elementary school. It might not be his fault, but then there was her duty or obligation to do the teacher's work for them. At very least, they could have used their brains and organized all this on a normal school day and not a complaint she wanted to voice later.
いや、というか敵。なんであろうと敵。悪いけど、情状酌量以前に敵。間が悪いのはお互い様っていうか、ほんと、なんでよりにもよってこんな忙しいと。
Her pounding headache from the lack of sleep had boosted her aggression by 10%. No matter how harmless the guy on the other side of the door may be, anyone who disturbed her sleep was an enemy. Just as she was reaching peak annoyance, Mr. Yamashiro opened the door to the meeting room, and the room slowly slid into the view. She didn't care for formalities, just looked straight ahead and stormed into the room, and found herself face to face with the most unusual opponent. Before we go on, let's see from another perspective. Turning back to the clock just a little. You don't have to do anything. For some, these words are priceless luxury. For others, they are unbearable torture. For a proactive girl, it was definitely the former, though she would be too suspicious of the motives of anyone giving her such a gift to accept. For the passive boy, it was definitely the latter, the bitter thorn that made him homesick, though at this very moment his mind was still distracted with the wait for his face to reveal any discontent. He maintained perfect posture as he stared at the grey sky. He had already waited a whole hour, but figured they must have had their reasons for making him wait. As long as he had sound of the rain to soothe him, he could keep on waiting.
でもそろそろ9時を過ぎるのか。
He has been vaguely keeping track of the time as he listened to the rain. Due to holiday, the school building was completely silent, except for the pattern on the rain of the rain on the window. The mood felt as damp as the air. It was then he heard the heavy clatter of the footsteps approaching.
よかった。忘れられているかと思った。
He could hear two sets of the footsteps, one heavier set belonging to an adult. He breathed a sigh of relief as the door slid open.
すまないね。随分とお待たせしちゃって。
The first person he saw was a man wearing glasses and an awkward smile. That was Mr. Yamashiro, the one who brought him here.
あれ？里中先生いないんですか？ひどいな。
Mr. Yamashiro scratched his head, looking increasingly apologetic, and then from behind him, with a tight-lipped expression that made it clear she didn't want to be there, a dark-haired girl with a determined look in her eyes appeared. Oh, the fated meeting! Yuichiro gulped. Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm not sure. The sound of rain on the window faded into nothingness. That's when he knew. This was how it felt when time stood still. Oh, that's Aoko! She blinked quickly a few times as if taken back. Why was anyone's guess? The boy was everything he expected a naive country boy to look like. However, she felt something she could not understand. His eyes winked slightly as if taken back. The reason was obvious. Putting his feelings into words was different matter altogether, so he will never know exactly what he experienced in that moment. That's when it hit him. He sensed he's been touched by the hands of destiny.
紹介するよ。彼が転入生の静木宗十郎くん。
Sojiro, so that's how you say his name.
で、こっちの彼女が静木くんの案内役。うちの生徒会長で休日を押して新しい仲間の案内役を買って出てくれた青崎青子くんだ。
His voice and sound of the rain seemed distant. This is how they first met. Such was their start, for the better of the worse, like the ephemeral beauty of the fireworks. It was commonly believed among the students that Aoko was always in a foul mood. But this gossip was 90% prejudice, as Aoko simply didn't have time to be irritated 24/7. The reality was that she simply didn't want to expand herself all the time, and therefore seemed angry about something obvious or not. This idle gossip did, however, lead her to earning title of the one of the school's 7 deadly threats? What the? The remaining 10% of the gossip was right on the mark. Aoko herself often had feeling that her tendency to feel animosity towards harmless things was akin to what a chronic headache suffering might experience. But they fell under the 10%. For today, her anger was pure, and her childish and selfish display was befitting of her actual age. The meeting room was dimly lit, awash in the colors of the rain. To reduce electricity costs, the school regulations forbid the use of lights during the day. This was the setting of the three of them found themselves. Her first impression was that his calm demeanor reminded her of a field of wild flowers, and in spite of his perfect posture, his overall air felt placid, tame even, and without describing him as a meek would be going too far, at the very least he was passive. Even through his uniform, she could see that he was thinner than average. His dark hair was unkempt, and he came across as a wholly forgettable boy. If you had to look at him in more positive light, she would describe him as a mere young man than a boy. It was his calm demeanor that made him seem more mature. Was that the cause of Aoko's reasonless reaction? He seemed almost too at home in the meeting room, and she was left with the impression that it was her and the teacher, not this outsider, who were the guests here. She felt unidentifiable aggravation building up within her, almost as if her right to be here was in question. Aoko felt... Jesus Christ. She's so entitled, what the hell? Echo felt herself raising her natural defenses.
信じられない。私、今わけもなく怒ってない。
She hated not understanding things, her own emotions in particular. It pained her less than you would imagine for a perfectionist like her, but it still nagged her like a thorn in her side.
いやーほら、青崎くん、挨拶してあげなくちゃ。
Mr. Yamashi's attempt to relieve the tension was equally irritating.
挨拶
After casting a nasty glance in the teacher's direction, Aoko turned to face the boy. From outsider's perspective, it might have looked like a stare down. In that instant, the culmination of her emotions stayed hurled towards the innocent boy and skivered him.
いや、待たせたね、静木くん。
Hearing his name, Sojiro came to his senses. His stunned gaze shook loose. He took a deep breath and cleared his mind. Chalking it up to nerves, then Mr. Yamashiro broke out a smile and turned to the girl standing beside him.
紹介するよ。彼が転入生の静木宗十郎くん。で、こっちの彼女が静木くんの案内役。うちの生徒会長で休日を押して新しい仲間の案内役を買って出てくれた。
Having been introduced by Mr. Yamashiro, the girl took a step forward. Her eyes were merciless. Her stare, an unspoken threat to violently trample an unspoken threat to violently trample her upon. Jeez, what the hell is wrong with this girl? Jesus Christ, chill out a bit. Jeez. Sojiro, on the other hand, managed to keep his own composure deep despite the shock at how confrontational she appeared. He has never been greeted quite like this before, but supposed mistakenly that this was how people treated each other in a city. An exchange must have looked like quite dramatic to the onlooker. The girl ready to brawl, and Ernest contributed desperate to understand. It was a murderous limbo, especially for anyone in the room with them. Like Mr. Yamashiro, for example. While he had thought that he made the right decision in choosing honor student to help him out, she was in inexplicably bad mood, and the tension in air was undeniable. And it was this moment that he realized his failure. His realization has come far too late. One false move, and this girl, for whom no problem was too large, would become a storm that would rock the very foundation of the school. Just as the almighty joker card could bring either of fortune or disaster, the sort of teacher who has been present at the time would come to bear blame for the scandal that ensued.
いけてる。二人とも気は合うようだね。それじゃあ、僕はこの辺でいいかな。
Oh, he's going to dip? He's going to dip, this little snake? Mr. Yamashiro laughed nervously as he crept towards the door.
僕は職員室にいるから、終わったら来るように。いいかい、青崎くん。なんていうか、生徒会長としての度量の広さを、この際僕に信じさせてほしいかな。
He just dipped? Mr. Yamashiro left, leaving the two in the locked eye state, one in which one set of eyes was doing all the glaring. All that remained in the room was artless boy and a cross-armed guarded girl. The two lingered in silence. They resembled shogi players agonizing over their first moves. Though it was only Ako who was reading so much into the situation, she decided to put her irritation aside for the time being. With no reasons to fear revulsion for him in the first place, she sighed deeply and faced Sojiro.
まあいいわ。山城先生がヒルアンドンなのは今。それで、あなた名前は？
Her tone was nothing if not reproachful, though he had done nothing to offend her, but the boy failed to pick up on it. Incapable of such venom himself.
ああ、静木宗十郎かな。君は青崎さんだったね。
For whatever reason, he came across as happy in his response.
さんはいいわ。柄じゃないから。こっちは静木くんでいい？
いいって。
だから呼び方。くんづけでいいかって聞いてるの。何？おかしなこと言った？私。
いや、すごく。
The boy replied immediately as if it was a natural response, but quickly second-guessed himself.
いや、いいんだ。ごく一般的なんだろう。静木くんで頼む。君は青崎でいいんだよな。
え、よろしく。
She followed her blunt reply with a swift turn away from him. While she was wholly thrilled at the prospect of the task at hand, it had been entrusted to her, and it was her personal policy to see it through to the end.
悪いけど、優しくしてあげる気はないから。時間も惜しいし、手早く行くわよ。
それは助かる。やっぱり時間は大切だ。
Arko's blunt rancor was lost on him once again. He must not to be overly cautious about being ignored, whatever form that takes. But despite being peeved at landing none of her attacks, Aoko did her best to act professional and directed her guest into the hallway. There was no sunlight in the hallway nor any signs of life. This was more like a prison than a cave that was meeting room. As it dawned on Aoko that hallway matched her mood, she sighed once again.
まず聞いておくけど、山城先生から聞いたことは理解してる？
ああ、学校の仕組みについては分かった。この建物全部に同い年の人間がいるなんて、ちょっと想像できないけど。
そう、よかったわね。
Aoko rubbed her forehead. This Sojiro kid had no idea what he was in for. Apparently all he had heard about school was that it was a place where a lot of people met to study. High school teachers imparted to students their knowledge in various fields of study while fostering discipline and creativity, but never did Aoko imagine that she would have to explain the concept of school itself to someone. Yes, fundamentals were important, but this was absurd. She had serious doubts that whether he could handle the classes, but Mr. Yamashiro insisted that the things would work out somehow. Sojiro managed to pass the transfer exam after all. Barely.
私には関係ないけど。
Aoko grumbled mentally as she walked down the hallway. She consoled herself with the fact that today would be the only day she would spend with this boy out of time. Or at least she would try to keep it that way.
青崎、
He asked calmly, trying to get her attention.
こっちも一つ聞いていい？
だから何？
俺の気のせいだと思うんだが、君はまるで何かを睨んでいるように見える。やはり今朝は悪いものでも。
Oh my god. Yeah. His gaze revealed earnest concern as if asking her if she had remembered to eat breakfast. Oh, that was not the right thing to ask. It was like another hammer to her head. Oh, she looks pissed. It was true that Aozaki has been glaring at Sojiro the entire time, glaring red-hot daggers in fact, not just at him, but at her own universe. Even on her best days, her roommate used to remark,
青子の視線は普通の人
Possible
に
can
は
handle
厳しい
your
わ。
skull, Aoko.
もう少し
It will hurt you to be a little more protective. You've been warned that her emotions were so naked on her face that people treated her like a powder keg. And naive, how naive could the boy be that he could not pick up on this?
私をバカにしてるってわけじゃなさそうよね。
Even she found her attempt to reassure herself unconvincing. It began to dawn on Yoko far too late that compared to her, this laid-back transfer student might as well has been from another planet.
いいわ。言葉にしないとわからないようだから言うけど、まるでじゃなくて、あなたの気のせいじゃなくて、私は視線で遠回しに感情を表現してたの。
In response to her word, Merchant clapped his hands together.
なるほど。どうしてそうしたいのかはわからないが、確かにそっちの方が手っ取り早い意思表現だ。
Sojiro accepted her reasoning without argument. Though he had no idea what kinds of emotions she was trying to express, it was as if he could hear the words but didn't grasp the meaning. Ideas that should have been connected were instead separated in blocks.
確かにずれてるわ、こいつ。
Mr. Yamashiro's words made sense to her now. What was odd about this boy went away beyond naivety. A stranger in a strange land he may be, but it was only civilized to forgive him some jet-lagged induced confusion.
じゃ、とりあえずあなたの教室に行くから。
She had regained her composure. Sojiro raised his hand and stopped in his tracks.
あと一つ。
Alco waited for Sojiro to continue, the boy was patient to the fault. She rubbed her forehead with her hand again, nursing the vague feeling of new unease.
これもちょっとした疑問なんだが、怒るのが商売とか、そういう家柄の人なのか？
This is either going to be a neutral response or something very, very bad. I guess it is bad. Actually, he is rage baiting her so freaking hard without even trying to do it in the first place. It's so hilarious, man. A long silence. Though she knew it wouldn't change the situation, she remembered her regret at answering the phone that morning. He meant no harm. She repeated this, though, like a bad friend, in an attempt to keep her impulses in check.
別にあなたのせいじゃないから気にする必要はないわ。ただ、この一瞬とお昼まで眠っていた場合を計りにかけたら。
With that vague answer, she started to walk again, and turned her gaze away from this rude stranger named Sojiro Shizuki. My boy. While what constitutes normal is certainly up to debate, most would undoubtedly refer to him as so. He was a simple and nice boy with non-descriptive features, as if he were an ice cream flavor. He would be one in. He is one in. That's fine. The Sojiro found Aoko to be very businesslike and full of life. There was a certain purpose to her movements as they began and ended in orderly fashion. The way her fingers raised when she pointed at things, the way she made her way across the hallways and classrooms, the way she would occasionally glance back at him to make sure he was keeping the pace. Each and every moment was so impressive that he couldn't take his eyes off her. Alco shoved him to his homeroom class C of the 11th grade. The room certainly displayed more of the human touch than previous meeting room, but Sojiro was none of the wiser as to its function. Alco gave brief explanation before they visited individual subject classrooms, as well as the gym, cafeteria, locker room, and school infirmary. Sojiro asked so many questions that much time passed before they reached the AV room to the second floor.
まずいな。
Sojiro stopped looking genuinely
あ
concerned.
と20分経つと1時だ。
20 to 1? What do you mean?
嘘でしょ？うちの校舎そんな広くないわよ。
The tour had begun around 10, which meant that 3 hours has passed. A tour at the school shouldn't have taken anywhere near this long.
そうだったわね。行く先々で根掘り葉掘り。
Alco laughed at Sojiro. She was being sarcastic, of course, knowing full well he would never pick up on it. To her surprise, he looked down apologetic, unable to hide his dejection.
こいつちゃんとしてるっちゃ。
The guy before her now was nothing like earlier. In contrast to seeing his once impenetrable window when they first met, she found herself feeling sympathetic. Momentarily at least, until her irritation returned in full force.
で、何がまずいの？覚えることが多すぎてパンクしたなんて言わないでね。
いや、それもあるけど、学校のことは別にして。
Sojiro's gaze wandered as if worried about something. If he was worried about weather, he would have a hard time seeing it as there were no windows in this hallway.
へえ、時間を気にするってことは用事があるのね。そう。人の予定を引っかき回しておいて、自分だけ好きなように。なんだ、顔に似合わずいい人ね。
いや、褒めても何も出ないし。
What's going on here?
誰も褒めちゃいないわよ。
Oh. She yelled at him, unable to hold back her fury.
で、
で、
それで一体何の用？
Sergio's face lit up as he finally understood what she was
そこ
asking
は秘
him.
密に
Oh my god. His rage baiting her so freaking hard, it's crazy. He said it with a perfectly straight face.
慣れ始めたつもりだったけど、こいつのこういったテンポのしずきくん？
She took a step forward,
秘密だってば
fearing them would change drastically, so Jiro took the step back. Another. No matter how many steps he took back, he kept edging towards him. She was smiling, but he thought he could see blood boiling beneath the hair skin.
これ最後の質問にしとくわね。あなた、私をからかって楽しい？
He had no intention of mocking her, though at this point he doubted that presenting any evidence to prove this would be too much. This would do much to erase the forced smile on her
分か
face.
った説明する
His arms raised in surrender. He held at her advantage and freed her face from the unseemly smile.
実は1時から
The truth is that my part-time job should start at 1, but students aren't allowed to have jobs,
そ
right?
うだけど、あ、禁止されてるから秘密にしようと思ったの？
知ってる
Oui.
試験の時に許可をもらってる
へえ。
Alco's face lit up as she realized it might not be a piece of work she thought him to be. And yet,
しかし許可は一つしかもらえなかった
what?
一つって。
これでも2件減らしたんだ生活費だけで大変なのに学費まで稼がなくちゃいけないなのに働き先はい
や、あんまりなのはあなたの方だと思う。
Though still irritated, her opinion of him changed a little. She was impressed he was able to take care of his dietitian and living expenses all on his own. She could also empathize with having no time to oneself. Her anger began to subside. The words part-time job were about the last thing she ever expected to hear out of this country boy's mouth.
そういうことなら仕方ないわね。いいわ、行きなさいよ。
青崎はいいのか
She had no idea why. She had no idea what his question meant, but she at least understood he was trying to be considerate, which also took her by surprise. She figured she would just be tense about people's feelings as he was about everything else.
別に、私もこのまま帰るから。
First, though, she thought it best that they both stop by the faculty room. Mr. Yamashita had mentioned that the transfer procedures had already been completed, so all that remained was for him to sign off her duties.
先生、案内終わりました。
それはお疲れ様。しずきくんもお疲れ様。
ありがとうございますなんというか
そうかそうか。うん、明日から頑張る。
She had no interest whatsoever in this pointless wrap-up meeting.
山城先生のことは気にしないでいいわ。教え子に厄介なことを押し付けてふんぞり返っているぐらい職員室が好きなんだから何時間でも待ってるでしょ。いえ、待ってるべきじゃない？
そうか青崎がいいんならいいんだな
There it was again. Whatever Sojiro was getting at, Yoko had no idea.
それじゃあ行くよ今日はありがとう
今日だけよ、今日だけ。
She shooed him away with her hand. His face bent with a broad smile as he found the gay gesture endearing. It was softer expression that she has grown accustomed to seeing out of him. It was the kind of smile that would make anyone smile back, well, most people at least. Aoko Ozaki didn't betray the slightest hint of smile.
それじゃあまた
And in that friendly farewell, Sojiro walked towards the end of the hallway. Or so she thought before he turned into the next class over. What? Did he just? Sojiro headed straight to one of the classroom's windows. Where he opened it with his going to jump from the fucking building? What the hell? A chilly November air filled room as soft sounds of the rain doubled in volume. In that instant, she realized his intention of opening the window. She really wishes she didn't.
いや、 待て待て待て
Here they had one leg in the way out. Every time she touched on stop.
何するつもりよあんたは。
何ってアルバイトに行くんだけど。
その窓は人が出入りするところじゃないの。だいたいここ何階だと思ってるの。
He saw light of understanding down in his eyes.
死ぬところだった。2階から降りたら危なすぎる。
What the fuck? Does he not know what windows are?
危ないのはあんたの頭。
Harry's thought went right over his head.
あのね、こっちじゃ窓から人は出入りしないの。さっき言っとくべきだった。
知ってるよ。時間がないんでありがとう。これからは気をつける。
He pulled his leg back inside to close the window. His uniform was soaked wet from the rain.
いいけど、私はあなたがどこから外に出ようが関係ないもの。それより、あなた、
来るよ。不安だけど案内してもらったし。
He bid her farewell before running away down the hallway. She hoped he would walk down the stairs and leave through the school entrance like a normal person.
大丈夫なのかあんなんで。
The image of him disappearing into the distance popped in her head in spite of her ire. She had no intention of spending any more time with him, and yet she felt strangely anxious. She couldn't tell if the feeling was fueled by concern or the irritation. Why had she even gotten angry with this insignificant transfer student in the first place? A strange day with a strange transfer student resulting in a strange emotion. Her head tingled as she reflected on what should have been a more enjoyable day than the irritating experience she just had.
いっか。どうせこれっきりなんだし。
Said every anime character. Heroine ever. The sound of the rain echoed quietly all around her. The grey sky seemed frozen in time. It was impossible to discern whether it was morning or the evening. Mr. Yamashiro and Aoko were likely the only ones left in the school. Until the classroom looked overly gloomy. The unlit classroom looked overly gloomy and ominous as Aoko stood in it alone. She pulled up her sleeve. Her dainty and remarkable watch showed that it was almost 1 o'clock.
時間。
She looked out the window at the grounds below. She saw a boy in a uniform running through the rain without umbrella. A sight she must have seen before, but for whatever reason affected her far more than she wished. Aoko did not stop by a faculty room before heading home. While Mr. Yamashiro's offer to drive her home was tempting, she decided it was ultimately be far more satisfying to ruin his day just as he had hers. She walked as quietly as she could towards the entrance and opened her bright red umbrella, and as she had predicted that morning, the rain was waning in the afternoon. At this rate, it would probably cease completely in an hour or so. The distant sunshine would likely have reached her by the time she arrived home.
ま、それも悪くないか。
She shrugged her shoulders in resignation. She neither liked or disliked the rain, but she found herself enjoying her walk home with her red umbrella in hand. The teachers at the Bisaki High School weren't fond of bright colors, so Aoko's red umbrella was an unusual sight. A ghost story about how umbrella was once pure white has been making the rounds, but it featured Aoko instead of Ghost. It was with that umbrella she made her way towards Misaki Station. Misaki Private High School took its namesake from the town it was in. The area was once full of farmland and woodland, but rapid growth over the last 10 years had led to unprecedented modernization. There were some who fought to preserve Misaki's natural treasures.
残すことには賛成ですが、それでは残すだけになってしまうでしょう。
With those words, the mayor snuffed out the voices of minority and unshared a long-term plan for new urban development. More than enough funds for the urban development were collected, and the unassuming town of Misaki became the largest municipality of Misaki City in mere 10 years. Even though it lacked the modernity of the neighboring Yashirogi or the elegance of Misaki Hills.
それも当然よね。どういじくってももともとが山中の宿場町だし。
Urbanization had been contained to the lowlands around the station, with most of the hills and mountains still standing as they did 10 years ago. The exhaustion of the fund succeeded in protecting the old Misaki where citizens could not. It became truly a suburban town welcoming an increasingly urban population with its vestiges of old country charm. Misaki High School was a private school established long before town's current state. The original campus, built 50 years ago, was located high up in the mountains, making its current location its second incarnation. The path to the old grounds was not only steep and remote. The path to the old grounds was not only steep and remote, it had become an overgrown game trail with passage of time. For these reasons, among others, Misaki High School had been shuttered until almost 20 years ago, where it received donation from the department store chain that allowed for the construction of the new campus in the city. And thus Misaki School reopened its doors and the old woodland campus forgotten. In fact, most of the students attending Misaki High School were not from Misaki at all. The heartless rustic people of this country town preferred prefectural schools to private ones. Truth be told, Aoka herself was one of them. All she had wanted after junior high school was to move to Tokyo, where she hoped to spend her days touring her favorite brands on her way to entering public university, but her hopes were dashed with her sister's departure, so here she was walking alone in a town with only red umbrella to keep her company on what should have been a day off.
思い返してみると、私の人生って。
Her frustrations erupted in a cold December air.
でもま、いっか。退屈だけはしないわけだし。
Okay, I wonder, can I like save? With these words, her mood brightened a bit. She left school in her wake. Perform quick save? Okay, I saved it. And then if I load, jump the how do I, is there no menu or something? Oh, there is menu. There we go. Oh, there is no bookmark here. Capture system settings. Place bookmark. Yep. Okay. Yeah, peeps. I think I'm gonna take a break now. For starters, it's very amusing and very interesting. So far there is no magical stuff going on. Just your regular high school shenanigans. We got to know Aoko, our main protagonist, our secondary protagonist Sojiro, and some hints about our third protagonist Alice, who is apparently her roommate. So yeah, pretty good setup. I'm going to continue this the other day when will have some time. And yeah, for now I'm going to stop it right here. Thank you guys for watching, and